The Secret Language of Presuasion, Part 1. What's the one thing I can do such that by doing it, everything else will be easier or unnecessary? In business, if you want more business, it's persuasion. Why? Because persuasion makes selling superfluous. To say it another way, persuasion makes selling unnecessary, which is good news if you hate the idea of being a pushy salesperson. If you're online, you can use persuasion everywhere. On your About You page, on your blog, on your landing page, if you're doing free reports, white papers, or anything like that, you can use it in there. Your webinars, your email, social media. But before we go on, a bit about me. Oh, that's me, Clive Cable. A few years ago, I went to a village near where I lived. I had an amazing burglar alarm I thought every home should have. So I started knocking on doors and soon discovered that people there were skeptical, wary of strangers. I soon discovered why. Recently, there had been a number of burglaries in the village, which meant they didn't trust strangers. And I ended up making no sales. So then I had an idea. What if somebody else persuaded them? Someone they trusted 100%. So I went to see the local village policeman. Yep, back in those days, you did have a village policeman living in a decent-sized village. So I showed him the alarm and I said, look, you couldn't buy it. I just want you to evaluate it. Then that way you're going to be unbiased. So you can check me out. I gave my personal references. I said I was a friend of the vicar. Him and I go running together. Told him where I lived and gave him 2 or 3 days to check me out. Then I went back to Broad Chalk to see what would happen now. Well, this time I sold an alarm to every door I knocked on. But soon I ran out of alarms to sell. My upline couldn't supply me fast enough, so he told me that his upline was a millionaire. So when I met Nick, his millionaire upline, he asked me how I was selling so many. I told him I was selling them door to door. He said that if I could train his director to make phone calls, he would give me all the alarms I wanted in return. So I said yes. So after 8 phone calls, his director made 7 appointments. Now he'd been trying for 2 years to get these appointments. Nick said, name your price, you're working for me now. So I started knocking on doors because, at that time, that was all I knew how to do. But I soon found out in B2B, people don't like cold callers. And if that wasn't bad enough, I overheard someone in the office say that if I didn't produce sales soon, Nick was going to fire me. Out of desperation and not knowing what else to do, I sat down in a dark corner of the office and began to write a 1-page letter. The headline read, "Are your waste bills becoming toxic?" Then I did something I thought was really smart. On the outside of the envelope, I had a little stamp designed that started to look like this, but it had the duty of care printed on it. So the duty of care had just been made law, and I thought if I had a fake stamp, it would make it look like it came from an official source, and to my surprise, it worked. That letter made over £100,000 in just 7 months. After that, my new saying is, if at first you succeed, try to hide your astonishment. That fake stamp persuaded them to open the letter, and the words inside persuaded them to phone me. When I look back at my days on knocking on doors, i.e. manual labour, versus using direct mail, it made me shudder to think of all that wasted time cold calling. 1 direct mail letter can reach thousands of people a day, and knocking on doors can only reach 20 or 30 people a day. My choice was manual labour, or the written word. No competition. When I was asked to write a Yellow Pages advert, it made £44,000 on the first order, and that was a bank that had been bombed in London by the IRA at the time, around about 1992, I believe. My second Yellow Page advert got us our biggest client in 25 years, and Nick had been trying to get this company all that time and failed. So each year we made over £1 million using only Yellow Pages ads and direct mail. So after 5 years, it was time for a new challenge. I decided to teach my writing skills to local business owners, which I had fun doing it. But what I found was 50% of them did nothing with what I showed them, and the other 50% earned more than I did, and that really pissed me off. So I started my own mail order business with just one advert. In my first month, I made £8,000. And my first year, I made £97,000. That was still part-time, as I was still teaching others how to write. And by the way, that was selling a product for only £20. So during that time, I sold over 500,000 bottles of this and over 300,000 bottles of Rivers of Health Colloidal Silver, which is now in every alternative health shop in the UK. And then when I launched the detox foot patches, we went from £8,000 a month to £24,000 a month, and I rented that list and I got a 12% response rate. My response rates were 7% at the lowest and 34% at the highest, with a 12-page special report, and that headline, "Read This or Die Young," and that went out to women between the ages of 40 and 65. A brilliant promotion. Took me about a month and a half to write, but when we sent it out, wow. Then the unexpected happened. My wife cheated on me and I ended up losing everything. So I turned to the World Wide Web and began working with internet entrepreneurs who understood how direct response copywriting could help them. There's a couple of people I worked with. I soon found out what I use offline works online. Except now with Web 2.0, you combine direct response advertising with social media marketing. And I'll show you how later. But doing that, you have the best of both worlds, providing you use persuasion with the hero's journey story. It is the storyline behind the best films of all time, like these. And by the way, the 50 Shades of Grey film outsold all of the Harry Potter films combined. The best-selling books of all time also use the hero's journey story. The most influential books on the hero story started with Joseph Campbell, The Hero with 1,000 Faces. So the hero's journey was always the same, but it was a different hero each time. What he found was the indigenous tribes, who never met any of each other, they lived miles and miles apart, so they could never have met people. When they handed their stories down from father to son, they were always in this hero's journey story format. So then Christopher Vogler wrote a brilliant book on the writer's journey. This guy is a consultant to screenwriters, Hollywood screenwriters. Then you see the 20 Masters Plots. This is the hero's journey broken down into smaller plots. Then fabulous book by James Bonnet, Stealing Fire from the Gods, and really goes into the hero's journey in quite some depth. I love this. This is storyscaping. It's stop creating ads, start creating worlds. Now, thought leaders use the hero's journey story. People like Perry Marshall and Daniel Levis and Russell Brunson, and we'll come on to him a bit later, his version of it. This is the other guy, Michael Haig, who's also a consultant to Hollywood screenwriters, and from time to time, him and Christopher Vogler do workshops together. Now, the hero's journey is a bit like the framework of a building. You see it when it's under construction, but never when it's finished. Here's the construction. So the hero recognizes that he or she or the community have a problem. The crisis compels the hero to cross. They find a guide or a mentor that appears, offering the amulet or wisdom that helps the hero endure, leading to tests, obstacles and trials, and then they get an insight or strength, and he or she recrosses and is transformed and able to save self or community by solving their main problem they started out with. So they come back to the known world. So you'll see this is the outer journey. They start off in the known world, they are forced to cross into the unknown world, and then as they go through their trials and tribulations, they come back to the known world with the elixir. The hero has two journeys. The one you just saw was the outer journey. The next one is the inner journey. Now, this is how a character transforms. So if you're telling your hero's journey story, it's you and how you transformed. So originally you had a limited awareness of the problem, then you had an increased awareness, you were reluctant to change, as all heroes are, then you overcome that reluctance, you cross the first threshold, and you make a commitment to change. Then, with the guide or mentor, you experiment with the first change. With your obstacles, tests and trials, you're preparing for the big change. And then you attempt the big change, usually you get setbacks, some improvements, some setbacks, and then you get a redirection of change. You're really going to go for it this time. And the final attempt at the big change, and then the final mastery of the problem. So remember, this is the inner journey, and again, starting from the known world into the unknown world, and comes back to the known world with the elixir or with the problem solved. So, your backstory. You don't need all 12 plot points in your backstory. So, the hero's journey goes like this. People want to believe you. They prefer stories to facts. So they want to know who you are and why you are writing to them, or even talking to them. And only when they know these two things can they trust you. The hero's journey starts with the call to adventure. You, as the hero, feel reluctant to leave the life you currently have because it's okay and you don't know any better. Then you have a significant emotional experience. An awakening, if you like. Next, you, as the hero, cross 3 thresholds. As you cross the first threshold, you move into a new world, the unknown world, different from the one you leave behind. You go from a known world to an unknown world. You have to learn new ways, you pass tests, earn the assistance of allies. You see any Harry Potter films, and they all do this as soon as Harry crosses that threshold. The second threshold is where the hero undertakes a supreme ordeal, and when victory is gained and there is a prize or reward. Those they defeat will turn against them, try to undermine them in any way they can. And as the hero crosses the last threshold back to the known world, he or she has to let go of old ways of thinking. A rebirth or death or resurrection. And the final step is the elixir. Now they have a new, profound truth to share with the world, and they will tell it whether people want to hear it or not. You, as the hero, want to make a positive change in the world. As you write your story, remember these plot points. You, the hero, is looking for something that is missing from your life. This must resonate with the desired outcome of your reader. The idea is you were once where they are now, and you discovered a valuable truth. One important point to keep in mind is your story must feel like it's casual. The plot should read like there is no guiding force. Ideally, you come full circle. The hero ends up back where they started. Transformed. It's never the object of the quest, it's what the hero becomes as a result of the quest. The object of the story is wisdom. The hero matures, he or she reaches the end of the story. In the beginning, something occurs that motivates the hero to start their quest. The reader must understand the reason why the journey began in the first place. You can give your hero a companion, someone to bounce ideas off, someone to argue with, and make the story interesting and full of tension, twists and turns. There must be conflict. The hero has to battle for what he or she wants, because without conflict, there is no story. Don't believe me? Watch any episode of Downton Abbey, and the whole thing is wrapped in conflict. Towards the end, the hero has their aha moment. One of the best ways to introduce this moment is right after the hero gives up on the quest. Now, the important part of doing all this is turning yourself into a charismatic character. The charismatic character has miracles, parables, rules, and storylines. More on this later. So here's another way of looking at it from Russell Brunson in his excellent book, The Expert Secrets. And he calls it your epiphany story. So what is your backstory that gives us a vested interest in your story? Your desires. What is it that you wanted to accomplish? What is your external struggle and internal struggle? Remember, we talked about that earlier. The wall. What is the wall or problem you hit with your current opportunity that started you on this journey? What was the epiphany you experienced and the new opportunity you discovered? Your plan. What was the plan you created to achieve your desire? The conflict. What conflict did you experience along the way? And what was your end result? What was the transformation you experienced? Now that's your story. Now let's look at making your potential client the hero and how you fit in as their mentor. Now if you look back at Star Wars, Obi-Wan was Luke's mentor, but before that he was a hero. That means you must make the transition from hero to mentor believable. Let's see how you as mentor fits into their reality. So you've obviously seen this. It's like a sales funnel type thing. Unaware, attraction, permission, conversion, sale. So the unaware is you or them in their ordinary world. Then there's the attraction, their call to adventure when they start doing some research online. Then they meet you, they meet the mentor, they cross the threshold, and then you make the sale, or they buy. So the attraction and permission is the content and social sharing, which is what I call persuasion. And then the direct response, getting them to actually commit to make the sale, is what I call persuasion. So here is the same models we looked at earlier, but in this model, this is you as the mentor. You know that the hero recognizes that he or she or the community have a problem. So your languaging must appeal to that on your web pages or on your direct mail or anywhere when you give talks or anything like that. Now, it's the crisis that compels the hero to cross, and you're going to help them with your persuasion efforts. And you appear offering them an amulet or some wisdom that helps the hero endure and continue on their hero's journey story. So I'd like you to answer these questions. On the hero's journey story, to solve insert problem or satisfy insert desire, we as mentor provide supernatural powers or an amulet, a magic wand or a crystal ball. So you insert your product or service here, and that magically states the unique feature your product or service offers, which allows the hero to create a journey that, and then you state the benefit or the experience. So there's the model again, and you'll see the model in its entirety here. So you get the idea, the bigger picture of what you're doing. So you as a hero and you as a mentor, your stories blend. It's symmetrical, it's owned by the company and the customer. Here is why this works so well. All of us are on our own hero's journey story. Each of us are at different stages in our journey, and so our other than conscious mind recognizes the hero's journey, and that creates a strong bond between you and your reader. Now, this used to be the model everybody used. However, that's been superseded now by the emotionomic matrix. It comes from the book Emotionomics. And there are 4 core motivations: to defend, to bond, to learn, and to acquire. So the hero's journey stops them from being skeptical, so they don't defend themselves. The hero's journey creates a bond between you and your reader. The hero's journey encourages them to learn about you. And the hero's journey makes it easier to say yes to your offer. So I'm hoping you can see how this is connecting all the dots for you. Now, if you want to know more about persuasion and how it can help you get more clients, feel free to call me, Clive, on 07796 354 114. Or you can email me, clivecable@googlemail.com. Private message me on LinkedIn. Or you can get me on Skype as Clive Cable. That's my Skype name.